Well, welcome everyone again, week two. This is the skills webinar on exploring careers. And we saw that a lot of you submitted the assignments last night. Congratulations on completing week one. Thanks to everyone also that entered contests. We saw some really great entries and we'll announce the winners tomorrow on Instagram. So head on over there to find out who won the contest for the week. If you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. We got a lot of signups over the weekend, actually. Some of you were not able to join us last week and you're coming now. That's great. It's not too late. In fact, students can really join anytime throughout the program and catch up with the recordings and assignments, from wherever you are. And you can also just drop in where we are anytime. So today we're going to be looking at career exploration. Tomorrow we'll do career and self-discovery. And on Thursday, we're going to have a very exciting surprise guest speaker for you all. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that. And a reminder, those Thursdays, you can invite your friends to join us, and they're open to all. So it's the same Zoom link that we use throughout the week. For those that missed it, last week we had Taj Eldridge, who was an incredible speaker. He recently raised $250 million to fund, and he focuses on funding clean tech industries and on investing in Black and Brown founders. So it was a really great talk, and you can check it out on our YouTube channel or get a link to it in our Google Classroom, which you should all have a link to by now. If you don't, reach out to us and we'll send it to you. So thanks to all again for who stopped by our office hours yesterday. I think quite a few students came by and asked questions, and that's great. We'll be there every Monday from 1 to 2. At least one of us will be there to answer your questions you may have. And it's a really great way to just connect with us and check in and, ask your questions about the assignments or really whatever, your career, anything you want. So that's a really great resource. And again, it's the same Zoom link as the sessions for Tuesday through Thursday. So great. Today, we're going to be talking about careers and finding your path. And first, I'm actually going to start by telling you a little bit more about my story and why I'm so interested in this topic of how we explore careers. And it also ties into why we're building Repicture. So I think you'll find when you do finally find that thing that lights you up, sort of, you will often find that the why of it is somewhere in your story as well. So I encourage you to always be looking at your story and kind of, exploring career options through your story even. My story is really not too different from a lot of people's out there. When I was growing up, my family had a lot of things, but we never had a lot of money. And our vacations were always camping trips and visits to grandparents and things like that. I remember the constant worry about things like rent and paying bills and things like that. And, I really wanted to live differently. I was determined to create a new and different kind of life for myself. The first time I got on a plane was in college when I went to study abroad in Argentina. And now that I've traveled all over the world, I've come to realize the many privileges I've had and how rich we really were, how rich my family really was. So we had clean water, we had access to incredible opportunities, even before the world was so hyper-connected. We lived next to a world-class university, UC Berkeley. We visited the campus growing up. We visited the Lawrence Hall of Science growing up, and our neighbors were leading minds doing cutting edge research and technology. Now you can connect with all those types of people online, and you have access to that in a way that you never did before. And I had other privileges as well. People in my life, saw potential in me, and they thought that I deserved help and mentoring. I've now realized that many of my peers who were equally hardworking were maybe overlooked simply because they had a different background or race or skin color. When I went to college, my number one goal was to get a high paying job. Because I didn't know really what I was doing, I took an introduction to civil engineering. And the professor, who was a woman, showed us how engineering could positively impact our communities. It just so happened that the mom of one of my best friends growing up was also a civil engineer. So from the very beginning, I could see myself as an engineer, which I now know is not the case for many young women. And really a sense of belonging and that you can see yourself doing something is really important when you're considering your career options. It's a factor that weighs into what you consider in the first place. Another thing I learned is really important is there's a whole lot more to having a fulfilling career than just being interested in a topic. When I graduated with my degree in engineering, I really just blindly and randomly ended up on a path after taking sort of the first job that was offered to me. And many times along the way, I wondered if civil engineering was right for me or if I was on the right path. I really craved more guidance and direction to help me know what my options and what choices I had. So with that, I thought it would be a good place to start to just reflect on, what what careers really look like. There's so many possibilities out there. There's so many options, and it's complicated. There's just so many options, so many directions you can go. So I thought it'd be good to just look at, what does the landscape for jobs and careers look like these days? What's the sort of 5,000-foot view? What are the big forces that will impact your journey and the choices you make and how you sort of navigate your career? And I think these are sort of the top of mind trends that I keep seeing over and over again, which is one, long gone are the days of staying with one company, one thing your entire career. Most people nowadays, they move around a lot more than they used to. How many times? Well, in groups ages 18 to 24, they change jobs an average of 5.7 times. That's a lot. And there's still continue to be high numbers like throughout your career. And number two, with the help of technology, we have this rise in just-in-time learning, this sort of massive shift happening where, some industries are going away, new ones are coming online, and these massive open online courses are fueling some of the demand to retool. So organizations like Coursera and Udacity, and in some cases, it's eliminating the need for a college degree even. So the whole landscape is changing. I took a UI UX class offered by Google through Coursera, and they showed designers that went on this non-degree route. Some of the largest and fastest growing industries you may not be aware of do not even require a college degree. So there's just a lot of options. And then lastly, number three, there's also a lot of organizations that are growing to meet the need to upskill you for new and emerging fields. So companies like Bitwise and Co-op and others, traditional educators do a great job of helping you hone those hard skills, but not a lot of them are preparing you for the workforce or the jobs of tomorrow. So many young people don't feel like they're getting that critical practical skills and the soft skills they need to thrive in the workplace. So your career trajectory is going to look a lot different than the generations that came before you. At Repicture, we've thought a lot about how people find and choose their careers, and we've talked to hundreds of people about this topic. If you're like most people out there, you probably only know a handful of the most common majors and career paths, when the reality is there are literally infinite paths you can take. Hundreds, if not thousands of companies you can work for. Most majors do not directly translate to a specific career, and more careers are looking like anything but a straight line. So as Taj talked about last Thursday, our guest speaker, many of the jobs of tomorrow literally don't exist yet. So how do you pick a job or a career or a major that you will be happy pursuing? How do you kind of choose that next step in your journey? And how can you know what you don't know? So let's look at this pie chart here for a second, and let's say it represents all of the many career possibilities out there. Um, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which tracks all the jobs market, they publish data on about 800 professions, and there are many thousands more. Even within the 800, there are typically many paths and tracks you can take within a field. So when you look at this chart, if you're like most people, including experienced professionals, the green here really represents the professions that those people in your current network have pursued. So you may still not know a whole lot about them, but they're the most familiar to you, and they're the places you most likely already feel like you could belong. Now, the blue represents all the professions you know exist, but you don't know much or anything about them. They're what you don't know. So you know there are astrophysicists out there, but you don't know anyone personally, and you don't really know what an astrophysicist does. So that's what you don't know. What's interesting is that a lot of people go through college and they get their degree in something like civil engineering. And like me, most of the field of their major or field of their interest is still completely in the gray. The gray is what you don't know, So at Repicture, we're all about exposing you to more career possibilities and nuances and things that you didn't know existed, and that you don't know exist, even within your own field of study or interest. So as I keep saying over and over again, you can't know all of the possibilities. So I think it's also worth reflecting on how you learn about your careers in the first place. First think about a career you're interested in, and think about, how did you first learn about that career? Where have you gone to learn more about that career? How much do you know about what it's actually like to be in that career? Do you know what a day in the life looks like? Do you know who you might work for? What organizations, companies or public and private organizations you could work for? You've probably learned about a lot of careers through your family and your friends and your network, and those both close to you and more distant, like maybe friends of friends. Another place that people often learn about careers is through their teachers, or a counselor at school, or even somebody that comes in to visit your classroom. A surprising number of people learned about their careers through a visiting professional coming to talk to them in their class. Outside of your network, that's, I would say, probably the next way that people learn about careers. What are some other ways you can learn about careers? If anybody has any ideas, please throw them in the chat. We would love to hear them. And, I'll say that what I want to highlight with the ways that you connect with careers and learn about possibilities is really the best way you can learn about possibilities in careers is to really find your tribe. And to do that, you really need to put yourself in new places and spaces where you're going to meet people and grow your network. I really encourage you all to do that and to try things that you've never considered before, even things you might not like. In exploring careers, it's all about getting uncomfortable, because that's where you're going to have the most growth and you're going to learn the most about yourself. So, join groups with similar interests. You can join professional societies, clubs, classes, and then now everything is online. There's so much information out there. And all you really need to do is follow the things you're interested in, right? Like listen to the podcasts and follow people you like and admire. Those are great ways to learn about careers and possibilities that are out there for you. So because we've learned a lot about how people find their path, ultimately, careers and jobs are found through your community. A shocking 85% of all jobs are found through your network. And if you read between the lines on this, you're also seeing that many of the opportunities that you know about come through your network, as we've been talking about. It turns out that the careers that show up in the green and the blue areas on that pie chart, those are the fields that are heavily determined by your network. And the truth is, no matter how robust or not your network is, we're all sort of limited in what we see by our networks, which includes the professors you have, your teachers, your colleagues, your family, your friends. Your network literally determines what you discover and what's possible for you. So Repicture is here to help you build your community so you can expand what's possible for yourself. We're making how you choose your career less random, less based on happenstance and luck, your background, your given and chosen network, whatever privileges or disadvantages you were born into, where you think you belong, and what others think is possible for you. So we're really here to help you create ways to more intentionally open up paths that you didn't know existed. Another, I think, really underappreciated way to explore careers is to first get really clear on what you want and what you like to do, and really trust that there's a path out there for you. We'll talk more about this in tomorrow's session, but real quick, the idea is really simple. It's just that, like when you're buying a new red car and you suddenly see that red car everywhere, when you get really clear about what you want, what makes you tick, you see that things show up more, and those opportunities that suit you sort of get filtered into your view as you're going about your life every day. Another thing to consider as you explore careers is what we've learned makes people happy in their careers. There's a ton of research that's been done on this topic, and there's no reason that we shouldn't all be learning from that as we're setting out and starting our journeys. So these are the top things that ultimately make people feel satisfied at work, according to Indeed.com. They include advancement, satisfaction, which is related to the ability to help others, compensation, engagement, flexibility, proficiency, security, teamwork, and values. And by values, it really means shared values. So when you're looking at a field or company or an organization and a job, you can use this research that's already been done as a guide to help you assess whether the opportunity is right for you. And I also want to highlight some other research that has been done. According to Adam Grant, a leader in the world of organizational psychology, we tend to follow a trajectory that looks something like this. First, when we enter the workforce, we start out thinking, I'm not important. Then, as we grow our skills and learn how to do our jobs better, we start thinking, I'm important, as we advance in our careers. Finally, as Adam Grant says in his book, Think Again, as we get older, we become more focused on searching for meaning, and we're most likely to find that in helping others. So the question we ask at Repicture is, how can we get to that helping others stage faster? And the beautiful thing is, in the world of STEM, we've kind of got that box checked because everything we do in STEM is helping others. We just need to get in touch with that more. I think many people often think that in STEM, you're working, in a lab and behind computers, and you're devising these technological solutions that most people could never understand. But the point of anything you're doing in STEM is always at the end of the day about helping people. And Repicture is really here to help make that connection, help you see how these fields impact, your community and the world all around you. So that's why we're building Repicture. That's why we're doing this summer program. We're organizing information about careers in a new way that allows you to connect careers and what you're learning about in school with what you care about in the world. And we're helping you connect with all the diverse people behind the scenes, creating our future. So with today's technology, we can really create a much more innovative, immersive, and equitable way to connect you with an infinite number of careers based on the things you see and care about. And you can also use our platform to see how interdisciplinary careers really are. There's nothing else out there currently that allows you to see how all these different fields are coming together. So Repicture allows you to explore careers through hundreds of projects that have been uploaded on our platform. You can search by major and discipline and learn about the diverse people in the STEM world. You can use our filters, and I'll just give you a quick tour of what that looks like. You can use our filters to search for projects based on your career interests, your major, your discipline. Instead of reading generally about the kinds of things you might do in a particular field, you can see examples of actual real world projects that people with similar backgrounds or interests have worked on. When you go and visit a project page, you can see how teams come together and all of the different disciplines involved in the project. You can see what your role might be in the context of the team, which is really invaluable information that you don't always think about. For example, when I entered civil engineering with my engineering degree in hand, I was excited to do some engineering. But I'd never given a single thought to who engineers actually work for. And I mean, who does, not just what company you're going to work for, but who does that company work for? So civil engineers often work for architects, but they can also work for local governments or the federal government, or even private individuals. And it may seem obvious to some of you, but for me, that was revolutionary, and it helped me do my job better to understand, basically who we were serving, and also how they saw our role in the projects we were working on. You can also see how STEM projects help people in our communities. So as I mentioned, STEM fields are involved in everything. They're involved in everything you can touch, see, feel, taste, everything in the world around you, including the air we breathe. So you might find projects on Repicture happening in your community or in your neighborhood that you would have never known about otherwise. You don't always notice the work being done right around you. The work that engineers are doing to restore your local streams or fix, the infrastructure that you rely on every day. You can explore and discover all of that with Repicture. You can also see how a project is funded, which can also shift your perspective of a project and the work you might be doing in a meaningful way. So in civil engineering, one of our biggest stakeholders is the public. And ultimately, the public pays for a lot of our work. So therefore, civil engineers, we can really think of ourselves as public servants in a way. And while again, that might seem minor or obvious, this type of framework can really affect how you show up to work every day and how you do your job, how you consider your role. It will help you think about who is hiring you, basically. And it's something we don't always think about when we're looking at our career options. So Repicture also enables you to dive in deeper and actively learn about those careers. And that's when you research and publish articles about real world projects on our platform. And by the way, those projects that you publish can then be used by other students to learn about the world of STEM. So this is Alyssa's profile. And you can just get an idea. You can read her story. You've probably seen this already. You can see one of her own projects and others she's published. And when you go to one of her projects, you can see that she's documented a breadth of disciplines, majors, and people, and she's written all about the project. She's written about what organizations come together to make it happen. So she's really gotten a more in-depth view of what her field could look like. Repicture will also help you learn about careers through the work of STEM professionals when you talk to them about actual projects they worked on. This is probably one of the most meaningful ways you can connect with somebody in the world of STEM and get to know them. You'll not only learn more about a field you're interested, but you can build your portfolio at the same time. And I'll just show you really quickly what that can look like. So Taizir is one of our past students that some of you may have seen his profile already. He interviewed a professional structural engineer. So he was an engineering major, and he put the interview on his profile. So you can go to his profile and you can see the interview that he did with the professional. And you can also find the project that he and this professional discussed in the interview and that Taizir wrote up and published on Repicture. When you go to that project, you can learn more about it. You can see all the people that worked on it, the organizations behind it. You can read about the project and really learn more about it. And from the project page, and from here, you can find the engineer that Taizir talked with, Zachary Treese, and you can go to his profile. And when you go to Zachary's profile, you can learn more about him and what he did on the project, what sort of a day in the life of the project looks like. You can see what other projects he's worked on and where he went to school and what he majored in, and what sort of qualifications he has. So you can see, kind of get a sense, if you haven't already poked around the site, you can get a sense of how everything is connected. So Repicture will also help you identify and obtain the tools and skills you need for a particular career path. As you can see, for any project, you can not only get an idea of how teams with different backgrounds and skill sets come together, you can also meet the people behind the projects and see what their qualifications are. And of course, in this course, we'll focus on building up those skills you need, no matter what path you choose. So one of the skills that we talked about is the ability that we'll talk about tomorrow, is the ability to look inward and know yourself, and what to look for in a career to align with your interests and goals and what you know about yourself. So as you can now see, everything you do really shows up on your profile. I think in your assignments that you worked on this week, you got a flavor of that, how you can really showcase your skills and your interests and your passion. So Repicture can also help you grow your peer network. So when you join a team and research and publish articles about real-world STEM projects together, you're getting to know your peers. And your peers, like I mentioned in another past session, are some of the most important part of your network, one of the most important parts of your network. So this is a really great way to both grow your network, get experience working on teams, and to show you an example, this is a project that a team worked on last summer. And when you do a project together, all of your names show up as page owners at the top. So you'll not only get a chance to work with and get to know your peers, you'll also sort of always be connected through the work that you did together this summer. So that wraps up the presentation part of our today. And I know that was kind of a lot in a little bit of time. So I just we're going to shift over to talking a bit about the week's assignment. And I want to give you a quick overview of how to upload a project and things like that. But first, I just want to pause here and see if anyone has any questions so far. And you can drop questions in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like. And of course, you can always reach out to us outside of today's session. That's perfectly fine too. Any questions at all before I move on? Everything is so clear. This is great. Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it's like kind of like a personal question since you were like kind of telling us about your own story. So do you think the career path, like now that you already have your own career, for say like you like 10 years ago, do you think your kind of career path that you wanted then is different from how it is now, or do you think it's still the same?
That is a great question. That's an amazing question. And absolutely, it has changed over time for me, and I think it does for a lot of people. So yeah, 10 years ago, I was working as an engineer, and I switched actually around quite a lot in my career, in my 11 years in engineering. I started out, like I mentioned earlier, just I just took the first job that came my way, and it was my last quarter. I studied abroad or not abroad. I studied in Washington D.C. It was a study in the nation's capital program, and I applied to jobs in California, but it turns out you can interview a lot better wherever you physically are. And at that time, it was, people wanted me to come in for an interview and I couldn't. So I went to an interview in DC where I was and just basically got a job and took the first thing that came along. And I really had no idea what I was doing. And that first job actually had a really big impact on my career in the long term in many ways. Well, for one, I made a lot of really great connections in that first job that it was kind of this unique thing where we were basically reviewing like we were reviewing floodplain changes. So it was for the federal government, basically. I worked for a company, but we worked for the federal government. And it was all these college graduates. So the office was just filled with college graduates. So it was almost like continuation of school in a way, except we all had a lot more money at that point because we were paid. And because of that, we really just I made a lot of great friendships that continue to this day. Last year, we had some panelists that have gone on, that I met during that first job that have gone on to really like high places in their careers and their profiles. Some are leading some of the largest engineering companies in the world. And I reached out to them and they said, yeah, well, I'll happily come and talk to your students, So it's really, so I guess I share that story partly to emphasize that you can get more out of a job than even just the job itself. But along the way, I realized that with that job, I really wanted to do engineering. I didn't realize when I was hired for it that I would just mostly be reviewing other engineers' work. And so I had to make a choice, and I decided to make a jump and make a leap and basically start again from scratch in a new company without any experience with design. Kind of, I mean, in a way, you could think of it as 2 years behind. But I really wanted to have that hands-on experience, so I made that leap, and several more like that over the following years. That was in Baltimore. Then I realized I wanted to live in DC, and actually, I'm more interested in land development. I started out in water resources, but as I learned more, I was really interested in, these physical projects that you could touch and see, So I switched into that. And I mean, it changes over time. So I definitely don't want to give the impression that exploring careers is, something you do once and never again kind of a thing. It's something you can continuously do. And when Lynn and I started Repicture, it was after my first son was born, and I just had this like really strong desire to do something entrepreneurial, and I didn't know what that was. And Lynn and I actually originally connected on an idea around green infrastructure and helping people connect to more resources to help them green their homes and things like that. And it wasn't until something happened in the world that made us switch and want to do something about the lack of diversity that we saw in engineering. And then that led to the world of STEM beyond engineering. I mean, it can change many, many times in your careers. And there are still those people that know what they want to do and they're on that path and but even for those people, I really encourage you to keep exploring as part of, your learning process, because chances are, even if you know what you want to do, there's just a lot more options than you might realize. And like we've been talking about, a lot of careers are being created now that never existed before. So you might want to be a doctor. Well, the doctors of tomorrow are going to have a whole different landscape. There's just going to be a lot of different things you can do in the field of medicine than we have been able to in the past. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, did I answer your question?
It
Okay.
did answer my
Okay, it's a little long-winded. But yeah, any other questions? Does anyone else have questions? And again, you can drop questions in the chat or raise your hand or just take yourself off mute. It's a really, yeah, it was interesting. The presentation we did last year on this topic, we got some comments. A lot of people really liked it, but we got some comments, oh, this is obvious or basic. And I think a lot of these things do seem sort of obvious or basic, but we don't really stop and think about them too often. And, I think a lot of times when we're exploring career options and choosing something, we sort of do it with I don't know, we don't always put a lot of thought into it, really. It's almost more of a emotional choice that we make based on kind of who we know or what draws us or what somebody recommends for us, and that's great. I think what we want to do is really just try to make it more of an intentional process where you can explore in a different way, and learn in different ways. So okay, so we have one more question. Are the projects we make, is one we choose, but just go deeper in depth? Yes, so I will be talking about the assignment. I'm assuming you're talking about the assignment. And I'm going to talk about the assignment here in just a second. So we'll get into that. This week we'll be uploading a project, our first project. So if there's no other questions, I will move on. I'm going to talk about the assignment, but first, real quick, before we delve into the assignment, I wanted to highlight, we did send an email about this, but I know a lot of you are interested in a team project, and I don't want to miss any of you. If you are interested in doing a team project, thank you if you've already filled out the survey. And please, if you can also fill it out once again. We've added some important information. So even if you've already filled it out, fill it out again. If you're interested in doing a team project and you didn't fill it out before, you can still fill it out. Just please get us that by tomorrow at 12 your time, wherever you are. And we'll assign the teams this week. So I want to jump into the assignments and talk about them a little bit. One of the assignments this week that I want to talk about is reaching out to a professional to schedule a discussion or an interview. We call it a discussion, but it's really you're interviewing a professional. And the main point is to not only help you grow your STEM network, but to help you practice the skill of growing your STEM network while learning about opportunities that you may not have known existed before through talking to a professional. And at the end of this, you're going to be talking to the professional about something that they've worked on, a project that they've worked on. So you're also going to be learning about more about what they do. So you can pick somebody that you know. A lot of times, you might have an engineer or a scientist or a STEM professional in your network, and you know them, but you've maybe have never really considered what they actually do, right? Like you maybe know that they're a mechanical engineer or a biologist, but like, what do they actually do? You may have never even thought about it. A great example is Lynn, my co-founder. She lives in a family of engineers, and she has one, a couple of her siblings and her father, and she herself, they were all engineers. And she has a sister who's not an engineer. Her sister was like, so what do you do again? And didn't really know, so it's not that uncommon. So you can choose somebody or somebody who knows somebody and if you don't know anyone, that's totally okay. You're not alone, and your network is probably bigger than you think. But you can reach out to somebody, you can reach out to somebody they know, you can ask around. But if you really don't know anyone and you're not comfortable reaching out to somebody you don't know, that's also okay. And we can help you. So do reach out to us for help on this, because I know it can be a little intimidating. I want to also say it's great if you can meet somebody in a field you're interested in, but it doesn't have to be. It's fine if you talk to somebody that you're like, maybe you don't you're not thinking about what they're doing, but through the interview you might learn. That has happened actually with our students before. So don't overlook people just because you think, oh, maybe that's not something you're interested in. And then finally, I just want to say that for those of you who are under 18, to read the assignment carefully, you will need to ask a parent or guardian, or one of our peer mentors can also help you. Reach out to people sort of on your behalf if you don't know them, and to also sit in on the interview with you. So we'll be available to do that if your parent or guardian can't do that. One of our peer mentors can sit with you on the interview, and we'll also record the interview. Are there any questions about that assignment? Questions, concerns, anything?
I do have one.
Yes.
So for that assignment on the week one, I just kind of put dream people I'd like to interview, and some aren't exactly contactable, to say the least. I didn't worry about people we specifically know how to get in touch with.
Yes, thank you for that question. I actually forgot to talk about that, so thank you. Yeah, so we encouraged you in week one to think about people you want to talk to that are really, like they could be stars in the field, just anybody. Just think about who you most want to talk about. And part of that was really just for you to start thinking about, well, who would you want to talk to? Who do you admire? Who do you look up to? Who are the people in your field that are sort of leaders in that field? A lot of times we don't think about like, okay, I want to be an astrophysicist, but like who is leading that field? Like who is in that field? Who should I want to follow and want to talk about? So I actually encourage you to look at that list and, find those people on social media and follow them and things like that. And in this exercise, you can absolutely shoot for the stars. When we were first starting Repicture, I reached out to people that never should have had the time to reach out back to me, right? CEOs of large companies and executive directors of national and international organizations with thousands and hundreds of thousands of members. And some of them got back to me, and some of them have continued to be part of the Repicture world since we started many years ago. And we have had people reach out to people, that they didn't know and had success with that. So I definitely encourage you to, again, if you're under 18, please get our help with that. But yeah, I think that is a good thing to just practice doing, because you never know, people might respond. But even like people closer to you are a great option for this assignment. So this assignment is really more about practicing the skill of reaching out to somebody, getting help, talking to somebody about what they do, and learning about what you can learn in that process, because that's a skill you can take with you. You have an idea, you may have an idea now about what you want to do, but that's going to change, right? So in a couple of years, when you're at the next stage of your journey and you realize you want to go down another path, this is just going to be an extraordinarily valuable tool to have in your belt, kind of like the ability to reach out to somebody and ask them for help and, learn more about what they do. So that's what this assignment is really more about. But yeah, you can reach for the stars, and I encourage you to do that if you want to. But you can also reach out to really anybody within your network, friends of friends, and that kind of thing as well. So let me know if I didn't answer that question for you.
I suppose I should have worded it differently. I put a lot of historical figures in there, so
okay, yeah. So
I can't really reach out to them if I wanted to.
Yeah, that's totally fine. You can revisit, and that list too is meant for you to have, right? So you can always add to it, right? You can always, keep thinking about who you might want to talk to, who you might be interested in learning more from or about. So yeah, yeah. And like I said, please, reach out if you need help thinking of people, or, even finding people, just let us know.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And then let's see. Another question in the chat is what is the best method to reach out? That's also a great question. There's so many different ways. Obviously, if it's somebody you probably know a way to reach out to them. If it's somebody that you have a common connection with, then I would actually suggest asking your common connection, what is the best way to reach out to them? Because they may have an idea. And if it's somebody out there you don't know, then, there really is no best way. I mean, I've been successful reaching out to people on LinkedIn and through email. But you can't know how other people are, where they are, how they operate. I mean, some people are on LinkedIn, but they never go on. So they don't even know when they've gotten a message. Other people are very active. So you can try, if you're really eager to talk to a particular person, maybe you could try a couple of different ways. You don't bombard people with a ton of messages, but you could try different ways. But yeah, definitely look for those common connections. And that's one of the ways that LinkedIn can be really, really valuable and useful. And I think one of the most valuable things about LinkedIn, honestly, is, a lot of people use it to showcase their experience and sort of as a resume. But the other thing it's really useful for is just knowing those common connections. So if you're not on LinkedIn, or even if you are, like, that's a great way to find out if you have common connections with somebody. When you look at somebody's profile, you'll see what common connections you have. When you reach out to somebody, even if you're not connected yet, you'll already see what common connections, and you can ask for an introduction. That's another really great way. If you have common connections, ask your common connections for an introduction. A warm introduction is the best kind of chance you have for connecting with somebody. That said, people are probably more willing to help than you might think. People want to help people. Like, a lot of professionals, I think, would like to get a message from someone saying, I'm really interested in what you're doing and I want to learn more. Can I talk to you? I think a lot of people would be flattered and want to help you. So you might be surprised. But again, you can't expect that somebody will answer you. But again, that's not what this exercise is entirely about. Part of it is actually talking to somebody, but part of it is just exercising that skill of reaching out to somebody and seeing if somebody can help you. So great. Any other questions on that? And also, Lindsay dropped in the chat the form for the team project. I forgot to mention as well. So if you want to sign up for a team project, that link is also in the chat. Okay, great. So I'll move on to another assignment I want to talk about, which is this week, you get to upload your first Repicture project. So you're going to upload one of two different kinds of projects this week. You can either upload an interest project or a project you worked on. So I'm going to talk about what that is. What is an interest project? An interest project is really any STEM project out there in the world, any real world project that exists and that you're interested in. So what you'll do is basically you'll find a project that you're interested in. You can look in the news media, even you can look in all different places for that. You would basically identify a project that you're interested in, and you would write about it and publish an article on Repicture about that project. I'll talk more about that, how to find a project in a minute. But the other project that you can upload is a project you worked on And that can be any kind of STEM related project that you've personally worked on. It could be a science project, a project you worked on in class, in a club, or even one you did kind of on your own time in your garage or on your computer. Maybe you built a rocket. A friend was visiting this weekend and she had just gone and seen a friend that built this elaborate rocket that he shot for his kids, and had a lot of fun, but it was very elaborate. I mean, you could upload a project like that. You'll see in the assignment that there are a lot of resources to help you with this. One resource on the topic of finding a project that I want to highlight is we've compiled a list of possible sources for projects for you. You can absolutely go out on your own. I encourage you to, but finding a project to write about is often one of the hardest parts about this exercise. And there's really no one source. There's no one place where STEM professionals go to explain what they're doing in a way that anyone can understand. That's why we're building Repicture, right? So definitely take a look at that list of ideas to get your gears going. You don't have to use the list. And some of those sources may be good sources of projects. And some, maybe you have to dig a little deeper, but there are a lot of other sources. This is just the tip of the iceberg, what we put together. And you can absolutely go out and look for your own. I encourage you to look at, there's a lot of tips. We put a lot of resources, you'll find a lot of resources and helping guides and things like that in the assignment itself. We have a lot of tips on how to do it, but great places to go are trade organizations, company websites, things like that. Even universities can be a great source of projects, and the news. Open your newspaper. Usually there will be at least several projects that any newspaper will write about in a given day. So that's that. Are there any questions on that assignment? And of course, you can always reach out to us. Again, I'm just going to reiterate that everywhere and anywhere. So you can come by our office hours and get help. Send us an email with any questions you have when you get a chance to go through that assignment. And then the second part of that assignment is when you're done uploading your project, you'll reflect on it and share your reflections, because a really important part of exploring what you like to do is just looking back at your past experiences and noticing what you liked, what you didn't like, that sort of thing. So it's something you can do to help you explore careers. So when you go to your profile, if you uploaded an interest project, you will actually share your reflections in the assignment that you submit, in the form that you submit an assignment 2.5. But if you upload a project that you worked on, you're going to actually add your reflections on your profile itself. So when you go to your profile, you'll click edit in the top right of your profile, and there on your profile, you can add, your role in the project, a typical day on the project, what you liked about the project, and anything else, you want to add. So this is kind of the second half of that, the upload project assignment. Any questions about that before I kind of give you a quick tour of how to upload a project? Let's see. Okay, Melanie, can you give an example of an interest project you did? Well, one I did that comes top of mind is I did a project on the Salesforce Tower, which is now the tallest project in San Francisco. And I just was curious about that project because I went, I was driving downtown in San Francisco and I saw it was being built. Actually, the tower had already been built. I saw all the construction that was going on around the tower, which is sort of like the phase 2 of the project. And then it made me curious. So I went and researched about that project and uploaded it to Repicture. So that's just one example. And you can find them on our site. If you go on our site and you go to the Explore tab and you go to the People tab, any of those profiles, you'll find examples of interest projects that people uploaded. And how you'll know the difference is when you're on somebody's profile, the projects that they worked on will show up at the top under projects I worked on. And then below that will be projects that are their interest projects, ones they didn't actually work on themselves, but just that they were interested in and researched and published. So yeah, any other questions? And we have to wrap up here, so pretty moment. For a project that we worked on, can it be one where we researched an issue and then came up with or found a solution for it? Yes, that's fantastic. Definitely. You can definitely do a project. You could create a project right now and look at something you're curious about, do some research, and that could be a project that you worked on, definitely. Any other questions? Okay. So if there are no other questions, I will just really quickly show you, give you a quick tour of how to upload a project. And that'll be it for today. Oh, and actually I see another message. Can research papers count as projects? Absolutely. If you did a research on a topic, you can absolutely create a project for that and, explain what you did, why you did it. You can even upload the paper that you did as a document to the project page and to your profile. So yes, absolutely. Okay, so finally, last, I will just give you a quick tour, as we're almost at the top of the hour, how to upload a project. And of course, there are resources to help you do this. So if you miss this, that's totally fine. Hold on one second. Okay, so yeah, so this is when you're on Repicture, you would go to the projects tab, and at the top right corner, you'll see add a project, and you click on add a project. That's how you get started. And then it just takes you through these 3 steps. So first you enter some basic information. In the second step, you upload a photo, and there's lots of information about what kind of photos you can upload. Just make sure you have the rights to that photo is the main thing, and that it's the appropriate size. They have to be under 5 megs. And then finally, in step 3, that's when the page will look very similar to what it looks like when you publish it. And here at the top, you have a publish button. So you can actually continue to work on the project and fill out the page before you click on publish if you want. And you can always access your sort of in progress projects through your avatar. If you go to avatar and go to my projects, when you do go and publish the project, you'll be asked if you want to adopt the page and control the content. And you want to say yes. So this is going to be your project that shows up on your profile, and you're going to want to control all the content on that page. If you say no to this, then it sort of acts like a wiki. Your name won't appear at the top, sort of thing, and then anyone can come and change anything they want. But you want to take control of the page and have your name show up at the top as well. So that's what that looks like. I published this project, so my name shows up at the top. And then you want to, fill out as much of the project, as much you can about it, right? So if it's a project that other people worked on, you can research and learn about what kind of disciplines worked on the project, who worked on the project, the people, the organizations, and things like that. And you add all of that here in the team section. And when you go to write your reflections on the projects that you write about, you go to edit your profile. And in this projects tab, that's where you would talk about what you did on the project, and what you put in here will show up on your profile. And real quick, when we get to the team projects, when you go to step 1 of publishing a project, go back to step 1. If you're doing a team project, this is where you would add your co-authors. So I just wanted to show you that really quick as well. So you would add your co-authors, enter their name. If they're already in the Repicture database, you'll be able to add them, which they will be after this last week. And that's it. And finally, I can stay on as long as you have questions, but that really concludes today's session. So thank you everyone for joining. We're a minute over, but I think we mostly made it in time. And yeah, I'll stay on it. If anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand, speak up, put it in the chat, anything you like. So thanks everyone for coming today. And let me know if you have any questions. Yes. So we got a question, are there team members in each group? And we will be assigning the teams this week. Please, if you're interested in a team, fill out that form. Lindsay put it in the chat. Even if you've already filled out the form, please fill it out again. We added some important information there. Fill it out by tomorrow at noon your time, and we'll assign the teams this week. Let's see. Does the topic of the project have to be strictly STEM? For example, if I did a research paper on the Salem witch trials and why they occurred, can that be published? I think you'll find that almost any project has some relation to STEM. If you can tie it to STEM in any way, I mean, even an art project, right? So, you know, there's a sculpture that's at the base of the ferry building in San Francisco. It's this like arrow that's shot into the ground. And it's huge. I was really interested in that. And so I learned about it. And there are structural engineers that worked on that project. So, I mean, it's a sculpture, but it's massive. And so they had, you know, a team of engineers working on it. And of course, you know, the paints they chose to put on the sculpture, a lot of science goes into that, right? Because it weathers the elements. So if you can find some way to tie your project into the world of STEM, then yes, absolutely. All right. Well, as always, reach out, and thanks again, everyone, for coming today, and we'll see you tomorrow.